Stop babying your kid. She can pose with a stained dress. Mom laughed after my sister's kid spilled juice all over my daughter's birthday outfit minutes before photos. My daughter froze. I didn't raise my voice. I removed my name from every shared payment in the house. By morning, Mom texted, "Why is everything declining?" What would you do if your mother told your daughter to stop crying and pose for photos in a juice-soaked dress, and then laughed about it? 5 minutes after your sister's kid ruined the only outfit your little girl had been excited about for weeks. My name is Graham Ellis. I'm 36. I manage logistics for a regional freight company. It's not glamorous work, but it pays well and it's steady, and steady is something I learned to value early because nothing in my family ever was. I married Noelle 7 years ago, a woman who speaks softly but means every word she says. And we have one daughter, Emery, who had just turned 7 and who, on the morning this story begins, was standing in front of her bedroom mirror in a white dress with tiny embroidered daisies on the hem, spinning in slow circles and whispering to herself, "I look like a movie star." That dress cost $42. Noelle found it at a boutique downtown. Emery tried it on, and something happened to her face. This light came on behind her eyes, the kind of light that only exists in children who haven't yet learned that the world doesn't always care about the things they love. She touched the fabric like it was made of glass. She looked up at Noelle and said, "Mama, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." She wore it around the house 3 times before we told her she had to save it for her birthday photos. I had booked a photographer, a real one, not a phone-against-a-wall situation. Studio session, 45 minutes, 3 outfit changes if we wanted them, but Emery only cared about one outfit. The daisy dress. That was the whole point. She had been counting down the days on a little calendar she made herself with crayon and construction paper. Every morning she'd cross off a number and say, "Getting closer, Daddy." That's the kind of kid Emery is. She doesn't ask for much. She doesn't throw fits. She doesn't demand. She hopes quietly and waits patiently, and when something good happens, she treats it like a gift she didn't expect. 7 years old and already more gracious than most adults I know. The photo session was scheduled for 2 p.m. on a Saturday. My mother, Patricia, had insisted on being there. Not asked. Insisted. "Family photos should include family," she said, in that voice she uses when she's already decided something and is just informing you of the outcome. I said fine. I always said fine. That was my first mistake, but it wasn't my biggest one. My biggest one was believing, again, that she would behave. My sister Haley came too. Of course she did. Wherever Patricia goes, Haley follows, and wherever Haley goes, Chaos is 15 minutes behind wearing a polo shirt and pretending it didn't happen. Haley brought her husband Logan and their son Caden, who is 8 years old and has the impulse control of a fire alarm. Caden doesn't walk into rooms. He detonates into them. And Haley has never once, not once in 8 years, told that boy to slow down, sit still, or apologize for anything. We arrived at the studio at 1:45. Emery was already in her dress. She had asked Noelle to do her hair in a French braid with a small daisy clip. She looked perfect. Not magazine perfect. Kid perfect. The kind of perfect that makes your chest ache because you know it won't last and you want to freeze it in glass. The studio had a waiting area, a small lounge with couches, a table, a water cooler, and a counter with refreshments. Coffee for the adults. Juice boxes for the kids. That's where it happened. We were 15 minutes early. The photographer was still setting up. Emery was sitting on the couch with her hands folded in her lap. Literally folded, like a little lady, because she didn't want to wrinkle her dress. She was being so careful, so deliberate, so aware of how special this was to her. Patricia and Haley arrived at 1:55. Caden came through the door like a bowling ball. He was already holding a juice box, grape, the darkest possible option, and he was squeezing it while he ran. Haley didn't say a word. She was fixing her lipstick in a compact mirror. I saw it coming. I think part of me always sees it coming with Caden. There's this half-second window where your brain registers the trajectory before your body can react. Caden cut left around the coffee table, tripped on the edge of the rug, and the juice box, already half-crushed in his grip, erupted in a wide purple arc directly across Emery's chest. Grape juice. Across the white daisy dress. From collar to hem. Emery didn't move. She sat there, hands still folded, and looked down at herself. The purple was spreading through the white fabric like ink through water. Slow. Irreversible. She watched it happen to her own dress the way you'd watch something precious fall off a shelf in slow motion, knowing you can't catch it, knowing it's already broken before it hits the ground. The room was quiet for about 3 seconds, and then Patricia laughed. Not a gasp, not an oh no, a laugh, a real one, the kind that comes from someone who finds the situation genuinely amusing. "Stop babying your kid," she said, still chuckling. "She can pose with a stained dress. It's not the end of the world." Haley looked up from her compact. "Kids spill things, Graham. Relax." Logan shrugged. "It's just juice, man." Caden was already on the other side of the room, grabbing another juice box. Nobody apologized. Nobody moved to help. Nobody knelt down next to my daughter, who was sitting perfectly still with grape juice soaking into the dress she had counted down 17 days to wear, with tears rolling silently down both cheeks. Silent tears. 7 years old, and she already knew how to cry without making a sound around my family. That fact alone should have been enough to end everything years ago. But it wasn't, because I was still the version of myself who absorbed things, who kept the peace, who told himself it wasn't that bad. Noelle moved first. She was beside Emery in 2 steps, pulling napkins from the counter, dabbing at the dress, whispering things I couldn't hear. Emery looked up at her and said, quietly, so quietly I almost missed it, "It's ruined, Mama." Noelle's jaw tightened. She looked at me across the room. She didn't say anything with her mouth, but her eyes said everything. They said, "This is the last time." I knelt down next to Emery. I took her hands. "Hey, look at me." She looked. "We're going to figure this out." "Okay." She nodded. But she didn't believe me. I could see it. She was already letting go of the things she'd been excited about, the way kids do when they've learned that disappointment is just part of the deal. I stood up. I looked at my mother. I looked at Haley. I looked at Logan, who was now scrolling his phone like nothing had happened. And I didn't raise my voice. I didn't make a speech. I didn't give them the satisfaction of a scene. I took Emery to the bathroom. Noelle came with us. We cleaned up what we could. The dress was destroyed. Grape juice on white cotton doesn't negotiate. Noelle had packed a backup outfit in the car, because Noelle always thinks 3 steps ahead, because Noelle has spent 7 years bracing for exactly this kind of moment. Emery changed into a blue sundress. It was nice. It wasn't the Daisy dress. She knew the difference. We all knew the difference. The photo session happened. Emery smiled. But if you look closely at those photos, and I have, many times, you can see it. The smile doesn't reach all the way. There's a shadow behind it. A 7-year-old who had already learned to perform happiness when the real thing had been taken from her. After the session, I drove Patricia and Haley's group to the house. Normal goodbyes. Normal faces. Nobody mentioned the dress. Nobody mentioned the juice. It had already been filed under things that don't matter in their minds, the way every injury to my daughter had always been filed. I drove home with Noelle and Emery. We had dinner. We did bath time. We read 2 chapters of a book about a girl who befriends a dragon. Emery fell asleep holding her Daisy hair clip, the only piece of the outfit that survived. At 10 p.m., I sat down at my laptop, and I started removing my name from everything. See, here's what Patricia and Haley and Logan and the rest of them didn't know. Or maybe they knew and simply didn't care, which is worse. For the past 5 years, I had been the financial backbone of that family. Not in an obvious, talked about way. In the quiet way. The invisible way. The way that men like me get trapped into because we're taught that providing is the same as being loved. It started small. Patricia's internet bill. She said she was having trouble with the payment portal, asked me to put it on my card just for this month. That was 4 years ago. It never switched back. Then her car insurance. Then her electric bill. Haley needed help with Caden's daycare payments, just until Logan's new job starts. Logan's new job started 2 years ago. The payments never stopped. Haley's gym membership. Logan's phone plan. The streaming services, all 4 of them. Patricia's medication copays. The grocery delivery service Patricia used because my knees can't handle the store anymore, even though she walked 3 miles at the mall every Saturday without issue. I added it up once about a year ago. I was covering just under $2,800 a month in shared payments for people who had never once asked how I was doing. $2,800 a month. $33,600 a year. For 5 years. I never told anyone. Not even Noelle. She knew about some of it. The internet, the insurance, but not the full scope. Not the total. I was embarrassed. Not because I couldn't afford it. I could, barely, but because I knew what it said about me. It said I was buying proximity to a family that wouldn't have kept me around for free. But that night, the night of the grape juice and the daisy dress and my daughter's silent tears, I stopped being embarrassed and started being done. I logged into every account, every payment portal, every auto-pay setup. One by one, methodically, like defusing bombs in reverse, I removed my card. My name, my information, the internet, the insurance, the electric, the daycare that Caden had already aged out of but that Haley had converted into an after-school program without telling me. The gym, the phone plan, the streaming, the groceries, the copays, everything. It took me 2 hours and 47 minutes. When I was done, I closed the laptop and went to bed. Noelle was already asleep. I lay there in the dark and felt something I hadn't felt in years. My shoulders were down. My jaw was unclenched. I was breathing from my stomach instead of my chest. I slept 7 hours straight. First time in months. Morning came. Sunday. Quiet. Noelle made eggs. Emery drew butterflies at the kitchen table. Normal. Peaceful. Mine. And then, at 9:12 a.m., my phone buzzed. Patricia. Graham, something is wrong with the internet. It says the account is inactive. Can you check? I didn't respond. 9:34 a.m. Patricia again. The electric company sent a notice. They say the payment method was removed. Did you change cards? I didn't respond. 10:15 a.m. Haley. Hey, my gym app says my membership is suspended. Did something happen with your card? I didn't respond. 11:02 a.m. Logan. Bro, my phone is saying service interrupted. What's going on? I didn't respond. By noon, the texts were coming every few minutes. Different people, different accounts, same confusion. The shared infrastructure of their comfortable lives was collapsing, one declined transaction at a time, and none of them could figure out why because none of them had ever bothered to understand how any of it worked. They just knew it worked. They just knew Graham handled it. At 12:47 p.m., Patricia sent the text. Graham, why is everything declining? 5 words. No please. No concern. No how are you? Just a woman watching her conveniences disappear and wanting them fixed. I typed back one message. The only message I sent all day. I removed my name from every shared payment. Effective immediately. You'll need to set up your own accounts. I put the phone down. It rang 9 times in the next hour. I let it ring. Noelle looked at me from across the kitchen. She had heard the buzzing. She had seen me at the laptop the night before. She hadn't asked. Noelle doesn't ask questions she already knows the answers to. You okay? She said. Yeah, I said. I really am. The fallout was immediate and predictable. Patricia called me selfish. She called me ungrateful. She said, after everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me? A sentence so perfectly ironic it could hang in a museum. Haley sent a long message about how family supports each other and how I was punishing Caden for being a kid. Logan left a voicemail that was mostly heavy breathing and the phrase, not cool, man, repeated 3 times. Troy, my uncle, called me that evening. Neutral tone. Careful words. Graham, your mother is very upset. She says you cut her off financially. Is everything okay? I told Troy the truth. All of it. The payments. The amounts. The years. The dress. The juice. The laughter. The silence. Troy was quiet for a long time. Then he said, I didn't know it was that much. Nobody did. That was the point. 3 days later, something happened that confirmed every decision I'd made. Brooks, my cousin, the quiet one, the one who sees everything and says nothing, sent me a private message. No greeting. No small talk. Just a screenshot. It was from a conversation between Haley and Patricia, dated 2 weeks before Emery's photo session. Haley had written, Caden's going to be bored at that studio thing. I'll just give him a juice box to keep him busy. Patricia replied, just make sure it's not near anything important LOL. I read it 3 times. They knew. Maybe not the exact outcome. Maybe not the precise trajectory of the juice. But they knew Caden with a juice box near a child in a white dress was a risk. And they didn't care. Patricia's LOL told me everything. My daughter's special day was a joke to them. A footnote. An inconvenience they were willing to let get messy because it wasn't about their kid. Haley hadn't been careless. She had been indifferent. And indifference, when it's aimed at a child, is its own kind of cruelty. I saved the screenshot. I didn't share it. I didn't need to. It wasn't ammunition. It was confirmation. The last piece of evidence I needed to know, really know, in the part of your chest where doubt lives, that I wasn't overreacting. That I wasn't being dramatic. That my daughter deserved better than a family that planned around her like she was weather. Weeks turned into a month. The silence from my family wasn't the angry kind anymore. It was the desperate kind. Patricia's car insurance lapsed. She got a notice. She had to scramble to set up her own policy, something she hadn't done in 4 years. Haley lost her gym membership permanently because she missed the reactivation window. Logan's phone was disconnected for 3 days before he figured out how to set up his own plan. The streaming services all went dark at once. Patricia called Noel, not me, Noel, and said, "Can you talk some sense into him?" Noel said, "He already has sense. That's the problem you're having." I could have kissed her. 2 months after I pulled the payments, Patricia showed up at our house, unannounced. A Sunday morning. She was dressed well. She brought muffins, store-bought, but she'd put them in a nice basket with a ribbon. She wanted to talk things through like adults. I let her in. We sat in the living room. She made pleasant conversation for about 10 minutes. Then her face shifted, that subtle rearrangement of features that I'd seen 1,000 times, the one that means the performance is over and the negotiation is starting. "Graham," she said, "I think this has gone on long enough. I understand you were upset about the photos, but cutting off your own mother? Your sister? That's not who you are." "You're right," I said. "It's not who I was. It's who I am now." She tried the guilt. "I raised you. I sacrificed for you." She tried the tears. They didn't fall, but she made the motions. She tried the redirect. "Haley is really struggling without the gym. She says it was her only outlet." She tried the minimizing. "It was juice, Graham. Just juice. And the $33,000 a year?" I said, "Was that just juice too?" She didn't have an answer for that. I walked her to the door. She stopped in the hallway. On the wall, Noel had hung a framed photo from the reshoot. Yes, we did a reshoot, just the 3 of us, the following weekend. Emery in a new white dress, laughing. No shadow behind her smile. No performance. Just joy. Patricia looked at the photo. Something crossed her face. I don't know if it was regret or recognition or just the discomfort of seeing proof that we were fine without her. Maybe better than fine. "She looks beautiful," Patricia said quietly. "She always did," I said. "You just never noticed." She left. I closed the door. That evening, after Emery was asleep, I got a text from Douglas. My father. The man who had spent 30 years watching everything and saying nothing. The man who turned up the TV when things got uncomfortable. The man who let Patricia run the family like a corporation and never once filed a complaint. The text was short. I should have said something a long time ago. "I'm sorry. You're a good father, Graham." I stared at it for a while. I didn't know what to do with it. An apology from a man who had never apologized. A sentence from a man who had built his life on silence. It wasn't enough. It wasn't close to enough. But it was something. A crack in a wall I'd assumed was solid. I didn't respond that night. I wasn't ready. But I saved the message. Someday, maybe we'd talk. Not today. Emery's 8th birthday is next month. No studio this time. Noel is planning a backyard party. Emery wants a picnic theme. She's already picked out a dress, yellow with white polka dots. She showed it to me last night, spinning in front of her mirror again, whispering to herself. "I look like sunshine, Daddy." I told her she was right. No one from my mother's side has been invited. No one is asked to be. The group chat is quiet. The payments are theirs now. The silence is mine. And for the first time in longer than I can remember, silence doesn't feel like something I'm hiding inside. It feels like something I've earned. Emery will wear her yellow dress. Noel will bake a lopsided cake. I'll take 100 photos. And none of them, not a single one, will have a shadow behind the smile. Because the thing about removing your name from someone else's life is this. You finally get to write it on your own. I didn't cut off my family. I just stopped paying for a seat at a table where my daughter was never given a plate.